Welcome to I Want to Grow, and I Want to Grow is all about that, right? Every one of us wants to grow. Today, we're celebrating 90 years of the British Council, and believe me, boy, have they helped people grow. Today, we've got a very, very VIP guest today. Dana, thank you so much for coming to celebrate the British Council with us today.
Please
you
for
introduce
having
yourself.
Me.
Yeah, if you needed introduction, please tell everybody who you are and what you do.
I am a Qatari female composer. And I specialize in neoclassical music. I have worked on musical theater. I've created works of musical theater, but my concentration is neoclassical instrumental music with a particular focus on folk and on traditional structures.
When did this love of music begin?
Oh, you know what? At this point, I don't know when it begins and when it ends. I think it's just a constant, right? Like, it's just something that always existed. And the only difference is now I'm able to, like, exploit it and channel it. It was always there. I think I was born with it. I started to play the piano when I was about 5, but I didn't learn formally, so I was just tinkering about on the piano. My father, there was a piano at the tennis club at which my father was working. He was the president of the Tennis Federation at the time. And it was the most spectacular thing I've seen, like this gigantic, object that made sounds when you pressed a key. It was incredible. And then eventually I started to find a pattern in these sounds. And I was able to recreate things that I had heard. Funnily enough, Mary Had a Little Lamb, my first one. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. I am a genius. This is fantastic. I can do anything, And then right after that, we jumped from Mary Had a Little Lamb to a Mahler symphony on TV. And I was like, there is a world of sound that is generated when a whole bunch of people are playing seemingly random stuff. And oh, look, there's also the piano included in there as well. So I was just obsessed with it. I was obsessed with sound. But this breadth of sound interwoven with a sound that is universal, this is why I started to gravitate towards folk, towards world folk music. And that's what brought me to my current album, where I've really been working with our traditional textures and percussion, particularly those that come from our seafaring traditions.
But you're Qatari. You must have been pretty brave to take this industry on, because you're a pioneer. You're breaking ground for everybody to follow or to be that inspiration. What was that like?
Well, I mean, every single industry, you had to have someone to begin, right? We're at the renaissance of our time here in Qatar. So anyone in my generation will most likely be the first to do what we do, right? There will be the first female archer. There would be the first guy that, climbed Everest. There would be the first female composer. And that's an exciting time to be. But also, given that you're there, you have that responsibility to basically write the canon. You're there to write, the treatise on what does it mean? What are you contributing? What impact are you going to leave? What positive impact are you actually going to be generating out of this? What is the point of everything that you're creating? What kind of framework do you want to establish? And most importantly, how are you contributing to a larger ecosystem? So when you're the first person to do something, it's not about you all the time. It's about how can you actually generate an ecosystem around you if it did not previously exist. So, I think anybody's brave to enter the music industry anyways, because it's not for the faint-hearted. I'm going to tell you, you got to get in there. You got to be extremely motivated and passionate and just love what you do to death, because some days you want to just like bash your head against the wall, and that's like across the board.
I was going to say to you, did that fear of failure, did it ever become overpowering?
It does. For a day, I give myself a day. I have the 1-day rule. There will be a time where I'm just like, I don't know why I do this anymore. This is absolutely insane. Why am I putting myself through this? I say, you know what, Dana? Just give yourself the day. Be completely depressed for this day. Be super angry. But then the next day, that's it. You're done with this. Next day, I wake up and I'm like, yeah, I love what I do. Okay, that's the reality of the situation. I love what I do and it's worth it. And I'll like walk through fire for it.
So you have walked through fire because you've had your own West End musical. In fact, there's been 2. So tell us about Broken Wings and Rummy.
Broken Wings was a very exciting project for me. It's my first time, and in fact, the first exposure Broken Wings had publicly in Qatar was with the British Council. So I was super grateful for the British Council to have provided me that platform, that opportunity to showcase, to bring my West End show to Qatar in an intimate setting. So that was my first musical. I had grown up being absolutely obsessed with musicals. I knew when I wanted to be a composer that my first project was to write a musical. In fact, I used to fantasize about writing this musical called House of the Rising Sun that was set in America in the Civil War. And it was in the period of time before the abolition, like it was leading up to the abolition of slavery. So it was that rhetoric, it was all the tension and the conflict that was taking place between, and it was revolved around 2 characters. But the point that I'm trying to make is I had been living with the notion of telling stories through musicals. That was a very strong part of me. And storytelling was always a part of my life. That was my channel. That was the way that I communicate. It was through storytelling. That's the way I hear things. That's the way I organize things in my mind. So it was only natural that my first project, my first international project was going to be a musical. And the way that this had taken place was I was invited to open for a Lebanese composer, Guy Manoukian, in Cadogan Hall. And this was my first exposure to a British audience, to an audience in Britain. They were primarily Lebanese, and the Lebanese had really stood by me. So in this period of time, my heart really goes out to them because they've really stood by me and helped bolster my career right from day one. So I have a lot to be thankful for, to Lebanon, to the Lebanese people and their love for music. So there were a few patrons of the arts there at the Guy Manoukian concert that said, I need to introduce you to Nadim Naman. He is currently playing the character of Raoul in Phantom of the Opera. And I was like, yes, please do. And my daughter was 3 at the time, but she knew all the lyrics by heart. So they organized for us to go watch the musical and then meet him afterwards. He's half Lebanese, and he also wants to write a musical. So they were like, you guys, there's definitely going to be some synergy there. And there absolutely was. That became the beginning. That first meeting day was the beginning of our partnership. And that is what generated Broken Wings. We both knew that we wanted Khalil Gibran as our first subject. We knew that we wanted a character that represented, whose body of work represented this universal conception of what it means to be human. That was our focus, a Middle Eastern figure who actually represented these universal notions, something to break the paradigm, something to break the preconceptions of what it means, again, to be Middle Eastern, of what the Middle East is, or to to discredit this whole monolithic interpretation of this region. And again, bring back the focus to the human, bring back the focus to human principles. At the end of the day, that is that's our journey every day, right? To elevate ourselves, to just be better people. We do that through education, we do that through meditation, we do that through prayer, we do that through, our different systems of integration and ascension. And Khalil Gibran is a very important part of that process, of raising your state of consciousness, again, in a universal scope.
It's very powerful, but I want to go, because I'm a father and grandfather, I want to go back to when you first went into the West End. How did your family feel? How did your mum and dad enjoy the experience?
Well, my mother took me to every single West End show I've ever been to. So you can imagine her feeling actually going to her daughter's West End show.
Oh God, I can only imagine.
You can't really put words to it. She was wonderful about it. So she would take us to London every summer, and she'd know, like, we have to go watch 3 shows per week at least,
Whoa.
And so, I was upset. I still would. Still today. I mean, I would travel to London and I would watch a show every other day. Because obviously for me now it's field research, right? So I really need to know what's out there. I need to know what works, what doesn't work, what different approaches are being taken, different approaches to writing, different trends. A lot of changes are taking place on a daily basis right now. So at the time, everything. Starlight Express, I wanted to go to it several times. And my mom, bless her, she was very patient because I kept going next. So it was surreal for her,
Yeah.
I think it hasn't even still kind of hit that it's her daughter's show that we're going to watch at the Coliseum or at the Haymarket Theatre.
The Coliseum, unbelievable. When you look at it and you think it all started to begin when you played on that piano.
Yes.
And
at the Khalifa tennis and squash complex.
Yeah,
Yes.
I can only imagine what it must have felt for her. And tell me a bit more about the run up to the first time that your music was at those theaters.
Well, there are several run-ups, because we had the first one at the Cadogan Hall. That was Sandstorm, my first album. That was my debut instrumental album. And then I wanted a more symphonic rendition of Sandstorm. And eventually we were able to build up enough of a campaign for me to have my first solo show in the Haymarket Theatre. And I've always been a fan of the Haymarket Theatre. It's my favorite theatre because of the shows. I've been to see The Goat there with Damian Lewis. I went to see Venus in Fur. I went to see incredible shows over there. With Natalie Dormer, huge. Bradley Cooper with The Elephant. The Haymarket Theatre attracted phenomenal talents from between, the West End, Hollywood, all over the place because of what it represents. It always maintained the integrity of the art that it, that it represents.
Iconic.
That's it. It's iconic, and it's maintained that. It's maintained its commitment to quality theater and quality content. So obviously I was extremely honored to have to be able to put on my first orchestral performance outside of Qatar, first solo show at the Haymarket Theatre.
Yeah.
I still remember the posters with my album cover outside the Haymarket, and I think I probably spent an hour just sitting in front of it going, okay, this is my first time and hopefully not my last, but the novelty can't wear out. So I was just standing in front of the posters going, I just want to soak this in. I just want to soak this in. I can't believe this is happening. Oh my God, look at where I am. It's my album cover.
Yeah.
So that was incredible. And we were able to build enough of a campaign and actually get the story out. So what was wonderful is I saw there was a huge reciprocity with what I do, and it was wonderful how people reacted to a Middle Eastern figure, a Middle Eastern woman in this in this area, in this line of work, doing what she does. And they were just so open to the story. They were so open to the particular configuration of my work. They loved it. The critics were wonderful. One that was particularly beautiful says, this is an example of the beautiful things that can happen when the East meets the West creatively. So they really got it. They got the heart and soul of what I do. They got what I'm communicating. They really got the interconnectivity of the sound. Again, understanding that this is obviously a synthesis of many different cultural influences, but embedded very specifically in where I'm from. There is a distinct texture of where I'm from that will always be present in my work because it's me, it's an extension of me. And everything else is, all of the stuff that I've come across in my life and my travels. So it was wonderful because they really, you see the audience receiving this.
Did you realize just how big it was at the time? And the influence that you were going to have in these meaningful moments about the East with the West? And
I mean, for me, that's what it was all about, right? So I could only hope that people were going to receive them. I had no idea how it would be received. I had no idea if people were going to get it or not. And every single time I've performed, I've really seen that. So now, yes, I'm very aware of the relevance and the importance of that content. And the way that it's able to speak to people, the way that people are able to interact with it and receive from that, that conversation that I was having.
Unbelievable. And I not worthy. You're fantastic what you achieved there. Philharmonic Orchestra. What was it like working with them? Because you started briefly talking about a team and how people come in and play a part in that team. I've been lucky enough to listen to the Philharmonic Orchestra, and
they are phenomenal.
Phenomenal.
They are phenomenal. I'm very lucky. I wouldn't be where I am without them. They were my primary teachers. I mean, I had begun with Sandstorm, really trying to find my bearings. I was very lucky to work with an amazing producer, Tim Baxter from England. He was arranging albums for lots of very famous British musicians, one of whom was Joan Newman. So, he did that very famous, iconic string arrangement for him. And lots more that escape me right now because I'm terrible with names, but I'm huge fans of theirs. But what was wonderful is that I was really able to learn and absorb different styles. And I was he was patient with me and was showing me everything that he was doing and was helping me understand the basic facets of, string arrangement, orchestral arrangement. And then I started to work with the Qatar Philharmonic Orchestra. I was so intimidated. I mean, what an intimidating form an orchestra, expresses. So I was a bit shaky when I first met them, but each and every single one of them, so many of them became my teachers.
Yeah.
And my long-term collaborators. And that was able to impact and shift and expand my style and my approach. Maya Salyamani, who's an amazing violinist at the Qatar Philharmonic Orchestra, specializes in maqam and this sort of arabesque, this jazzy arabesque, approach to music. He had collaborated with me on Luster, something that sounds completely different than anything I've ever written because of that, because of his integration to it, the integration of his sound. And he had orchestrated my first work that incorporated the Qatari pearl diving drummers and chanting into a body of work that I'd created. So, and that was the beginning of this direction, the direction that is now about to evolve into Tempest. So again, it was really absorbing and understanding, Giovanni Passini from the orchestra. He's a conductor. He conducts the Qatar Concert Choir over here, and he's extremely involved in community development affairs. He has helped me, and he has worked with me on a few projects, one of them being Orlando Furioso, which was a show that we did in Italy, in Palermo, with the National Symphony Orchestra over there. And it's an epic starring Stefano Accorsi, one of Italy's most famous actors, and I did all the music for it. So again, without him, I never would have been able to do that. And there's Yoris and Sonia, you know, they've held the Qatar national competition. They have moving young artists, and my daughter's been a participant in. So each and every single one of them not only color the community, but myself, Dmitry Torchinsky, who was always, you know, he was my go-to person with the Qatar, with the Doha String Quartet. You know, that was my first collaboration. Doha String Quartet is part of the Qatar Philharmonic Orchestra. He was my go-to guy on the musicians, on, you know, maybe this configuration, how can we organize this show, that, or maybe this sound, you know, advice. I was super, super lucky to have access to all these people.
We were lucky. We interviewed Kurt, and also
isn't that incredible,
Dr.
Kurt?
Nasser.
Yes.
Yeah, and they just
It's
have
a
that
family.
A family.
It's a family.
It's that community where
Yes.
where everybody wants everybody to succeed. right?
Absolutely. Because we're all creating something extremely unique, extremely rare. You know, and we really stand out in this region in terms of, you know, what we do. Dr. Nasser Kurt founded the orchestra. Kurt is the father of the orchestra, and Nasser has really been developing this orchestral rendition of popular traditional songs, which is so important for our consciousness, for our identity. I mean, without him, you know, this would be lost in a few years. So we're all part of a very important ecosystem that is really contributing to our present, generating the framework of our present, but also coloring our future and actually, you know, naming what it is that our cultural export is. Each and every single one of us has a hand in it, and we're super lucky to be working in this period of time and expressing ourselves and our art in this period of time.
I think Qatar's lucky as well to have people like you representing it and doing the colouring, as you said, because you really have. You've been pioneers, and it's very easy to. There's so many critics out there, right? But you've powered through all of those. Everybody's powered through, because I asked them the same. What did you think? Did you ever think you'd get to this stage with the Philharmonic Orchestra here in Qatar? And they said, not when we first started.
Yeah.
But now we look at it, it's very impressive. It's it's down testament to all of you that's played a role.
Thank you.
With the UK, there seems to be, we've always, with the British Council, we're here celebrating. It's lovely to hear some of your stories. But the British Council is, and the ripples, the waves that you're creating, so are they in their way. Not just from a music perspective, but the way that they're educating people, the way that they're teaching, giving people, helping them with the English language. That relationship seems to be really I'm really proud of it. I'm from the UK.
Absolutely.
And I'm proud to be here for the last 16 years. And it's a wonderful place. There's a special relationship with the UK. How is it with you, and how has it helped your career?
I mean, for me, there is always, you know, for me, the UK has been the basis of my cultural consciousness in terms of music and orchestral music. You know, everything that I have learned from in terms of musical theater, all the concerts that I've been to, it's been the UK, it's been London. I mean, I love Broadway as well, but my heart belongs to the West End. There is something special. It's like, it's chemistry, you know, there's a particular chemical composition over there. And I guess it's also the history, right? I mean, the history will pepper the content that comes out of it. My most, you know, the most defining moments, those moments that you watch something and you're like, I will never be the same again because of my exposure to this. So everything that I've done has been hugely, hugely influenced, not just influence driven. You know, these aha moments, these eureka moments have all come from the UK when it comes to all of the content that I create. For example, my new musical, Queen of Carthage, is, again, from where? Purcell's Queen of Carthage. I was watching, I remember in COVID, there was this really famous TV show, and it was a spy-related TV show, and I don't remember the name. Again, you realize terrible with names. But anyways, there's a scene in which the head spy, who was a woman, was in the car, and then the famous aria, The Lamentation, was playing. And I was like, wow, I want to watch that opera again. It's COVID, fantastic. Let's find it on YouTube and watch it. And I did. And I was just besotted with the music. It was only the aria, the lamentation, so the last, when she dies, when she kills herself. It's not a spoiler, everybody knows, so it's fine. It's like spoiling Troy, we know. So that was the last aria, and the most famous one. That's the one I was familiar with. I wasn't familiar with the other ones. So I'd watched and I was like, you know what? It's time for a reinterpretation. The songs are wonderful, but the interpretation of the story, I'm not feeling so great about. I mean, this is a phenomenal woman she's a Phoenician princess. Her father dies, bequeaths the kingdom to herself. Her brother, she escapes. And then what she's presented like this tiny little weakling that like kills herself because, this demigod decides to leave her. Nope, that's totally not what happened. So, she was a substantial figure. She stood for something. She fought for something. She didn't go and create this kingdom and then kill herself because her love leaves her. She has a responsibility to her people, to her. So I had commissioned a few people to get on board, an author and, a journalist. And together we really pieced together the puzzles of the story. And now we have this empowered, strong female figure who is our Queen of Carthage. And I will pay tribute to this aria because that's the one that I fell in love with. So I'm writing the whole thing from scratch. It will be a play with music. So it will be musical theater, but it won't be like traditional musical theater where they're breaking into song and dance every couple of sentences. It'll be there for something. The music will be relevant to the actual dialogue or story arc. And dance will feature very heavily. In fact, it'll be part of the production. It'll be part of the actual stage production will be people dancing, and it's a powerful story. We're reclaiming a woman, a phenomenal woman, and reinterpreting her story. We're bringing her back from the ashes of history, and again, this came back from Purcell, British composer, in Christopher Marlowe's play. So everything comes back to that.
Do you see yourself as that character as well? Because it sounds like you're a bit like her too. Not saying about the love thing of it, but persistent.
I wouldn't kill myself for that.
No, obviously. but there seems to be that strong will, that steel in you that you wouldn't lay down.
Probably there. There is a Queen of Carthage in all of us that have
Correct,
striven, to rise above, that have striven to break down barriers, that have striven to really, to put our hearts and souls into what we do and never give up. There is. So she is such a relevant figure. For sure, I feel connected to her, and many women would.
Congratulations. Now let's go on to the British Council. How have they helped you? How much involvement have they been in your career or the things that you've developed over the years?
Well, they've given me a platform. So, British Council has always been active. Again, also has exposed me to things that I otherwise wouldn't. The different shows that they brought, different entertainment, different... and again, there's always been a quality control, so that's fantastic. But most importantly, it has given me a platform to showcase my art that is relevant to England. It has been the actual, representation of East meets West. It is me meets England. And this is the result. Jibran Khalil Gibran, and they gave me the opportunity to showcase my work here at the Qatar amphitheater, the most iconic space. It was a dream for me to have any of my work performed over there. So it was incredible. Like, that was literally a dream come true. They'd flown out our West End actors. They'd flown out Nadim, who is, again, at the time, Raoul from Phantom of the Opera, one of the most iconic characters in West End history, musical theater history. The guy that was playing young Gibran, Rob, who was Marius in Les Mis. So again, they really gave me the platform to showcase my work with some of the most, iconic figures in the West End. I mean, that's just priceless. I can't even put words to that here in my country.
Priceless.
Yes, because it also, what it does is it shortens the gap. Right? When we look at that, when you look at West End, the guy playing Marius, the guy playing, Raoul, and we feel like we can never get to that. It's just so far. It's unheard of. It just feels so detached. There are two centers of musical theater in the world. It's just West End and Broadway. The whole world is competing for that. So they've shortened the gap. They've made me and everybody else feel like showcased to my country. You know what? It's right there. It's right there. This world is truly a meritocracy. If you've got the right content and it's also right time at the right place, then it's there. There is no distance.
And that's the one thing that I've noticed because I didn't know much about the British Council. If I'm honest, and I've said this to Wasim as well, if I'm honest, I didn't know much about it. I didn't know how much an influence they've had since 1972 and how they've been part of people's lives. And I've seen over these last few weeks unbelievable and heard unbelievable stories, just like yours, on how many millions and millions of people that they've touched with starting that ripple, and then your story going on to the West End, your story that goes on to all the different the Philharmonic Orchestra, because you had to do it with your own abilities. They just gave you the opportunity. You had to fulfill, but they believed in somebody like you to be able to go and fulfill and keep on creating those ripples. So I love the British Council. Let me tell you, even I love the British Council for what they've done, and your story is just incredible. If there was a message that you gave to them for the next 90 years, what would it be?
I would say don't change a thing. Maintain your commitment to quality and to collaboration. If you ask me, I was thinking about it now about the board, what's that one word? Collaboration, synergy. That's what the British Council offers. And I think today that's the most powerful outcome.
It makes me even proud of being British. It makes me proud to think what they've done and achieved.
So you should be.
Yeah, I am, very much so. And it's been I've got one more question to ask you before I go, but I think you've already got the answer. One word to describe them.
Synergetic.
You've been an amazing guest today. I'm so proud of your words. I'm so proud of what they've helped you with, what you've created, and it's all about those ripples. It's all about those things, and you never know where those ripples are going to take you, right?
Absolutely, ripples.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
It's been an absolute joy, and let me tell you, a joy.
Thank you.
Thank you so much indeed.